You all seem very quiet and focused, aren't you? But there's something I know none of you can help doing. You're breathing. And if you're breathing, ladies and gentlemen, think about it for a second. It is because every single cell in your body needs oxygen to function. And this oxygen is carried through your body by your blood. When an organ is transplanted, because this is my research focus, it is retrieved from the body of the donor and transported to the recipient. And during this period of time, it does no longer receive any blood and thus no oxygen. This is what we call ischemia. The cells are thus forced to hold their breath and try to spare their energy, but after a certain period of time, even the most apneists of them end up dying. You see, we're off to a happy start. And you would have understand, ladies and gentlemen, the longer we wait when transplanting an organ, the more the cells will suffer. And when they suffer, they don't sit here doing nothing. Like anyone would do, they call for help by sending distress signals. But when the organ reaches its destination, you may think that all the problems would be solved. Actually, this is where our story begins. The white blood cells, the body's own policemen patrolling in the recipient's blood, sense those blood signals, and this drives them completely mad. Instead of helping those poor cells, which would have already suffered enough, you may think, they start to attack the organ. This behavior that we may easily define as not very okay. Well, we call it ischemia reperfusion injury, which in the worst case can damage the organ irreversibly. My research thus aims to find treatments to mitigate or prevent this deleterious reaction to protect the organ better. By studying this phenomenon in mice, we found that females were protected against this injury as compared to males. But how? This is precisely the question of my research. Even more interestingly, my data showed that estrogens, one of female sex hormones, were necessary for this protection. We then understood that estrogens have the capacity to communicate directly with the white blood cells and tell them, for example, well, didn't anybody think it was a shitty idea to attack this organ we'd been waiting on for years and which was here to save our life? Well, they probably don't communicate in those terms, but I am now trying to understand exactly what is being said in this cellular communication. This would allow the creation of treatments which have the same protective effects as estrogens, but without all the other effects. It would therefore help reduce the risk of organ rejection and allow the use of more organs, even if they have been exposed to a longer period of time without oxygen. This would increase the quality and the quantity of organs available for all the patients waiting for a transplant in difficult conditions. For the last 3 minutes, I've been talking to you about how research gives us hope to improve the field of organ transplantation. But as you know, transplantation is also a political question. And we, as a society, can all play a key role to ameliorate the situation. And this is by reflecting and talking about organ donation. Donating organs is a deeply personal and philosophical question with no right and wrong answer, but we so often avoid talking about it because it touches our deepest fears about death. But in a way, ladies and gentlemen, if we are able to talk about death, doesn't it mean that we are well alive after all? In my opinion, I think that if we were to talk more and communicate with our loved ones about this matter, it would allow more serene decisions. And this is why I think that it is essential to keep on working to bring more information to the public on this very important matter. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, in a way, whether we are human or even in the cellular world, everything so often seems to be just a matter of good communication. Thank you very much.